this is the Ultravision CT lift system, and we're going to go through the setup of this system and use for a minimally invasive coronary procedure through a small left thoracotomy. So the setup for this procedure uses these Ima Lift Blades, and the Ima Lift Blades come in two sizes, wide or narrow, depending on your patient size. And it's going to be used in conjunction with the Ultravision CT surgical access system. So in this application, we're going to use a lower blade and the CT lift blade from the lift set. Put the lower blade here, and then we're going to put the CT lift blade on, the one that we're going to use. And we're going to actually take the standard blade, lift it back so that we can easily deploy the lift blade into the thoracotomy incision. And then we're going to go ahead and put the lower blade into the thoracotomy incision. Okay. Now before we retract, we're going to go ahead and take the pivot and pivot the lift blade all the way, and this is going to bring it up against the chest wall. All right, now we're ready to retract. At this point, we're ready to lift, so we're going to take out the balance of the lift system. So we'll start with the table arm here. We're going to mount this as up towards the patient's neck. We're going to loosen this so that it fits over the table rail. We're going to mount it over the drape. And then once we get it tight by turning it clockwise, we're going to take this lever, where this is going to allow us the torque to get it very stable. Then we're going to go ahead and position the extension arm. Again, it's 2 diameters. Now this could actually be mounted across the table from the patient, but we're going to go ahead and mount it in an orientation so that it will be able to lift this. So we're going to put it here on the table arm, and we're going to get it to where the lift mechanism will be at a high enough point, and I'm guessing that's at about the right spot. Then we're actually going to take this blade hook here and the actual lift mechanism. Now the lift mechanism is going to be mounted by placing it over this small diameter part here. And then we're going to go ahead and put the blade hook in the blade and mount the ball inside of that. Did you get that there? Put the ball right inside the lift mechanism. Now we're ready to go ahead and lift. And we're going to go ahead and use the retractor crank here to do so. Okay. Oh. See how that's lifting up like this? Now that's going to give us excellent visualization of the left IMA through this thoracotomy incision. Now, when we're done taking down the IMA, we can either leave the lift setup as it is and apply a stabilizer through this incision, or we can take it apart and change the retractor and go through with the retractor in its normal position. So I'm going to show you exactly how we'll achieve stabilization using that. So to do that, I'm going to go ahead and release the lift mechanism, again holding this so that it doesn't drop down all at once. Just go through the reverse setups that we did before. Off. Take the extension arm off. I'm going to go ahead and lift the lever again so that we have the torque to be able to punch it. Loosen it enough to come off the table rail, okay? See how quickly this assembles and disassembles. Now we're actually going to unpivot this. You can also use the pivot tool that's included with the retractor. Then we're going to go ahead and take this one out. we're going to remove that lift blade and replace it with the upper retractor blade. Okay. I'm going to put it back in the incision. Okay, now that we've inserted the retractor and spread, we can go ahead and put the lighting into the system. Okay, right into these little light channels right here. And then we're going to go ahead and pass this light cable off the sterile field, where it'll be put into the light source. Light source is turned on. Now we have lighting in there. You can see. Again, I always like to say this is what we have without the light, this is what we have with it. So now we can see good. Now the next step is going to be our stabilization. So we're going to do stabilization in this case externally, and we have a number of different options. So this one, we're going to use a Mckay Stabilizer. The Mckay Stabilizer requires an adapter that we place on to the stabilizer so that it fits on the small rack. So you can see that in place right there. That's the stabilizer adapter. Just goes right on like so. Okay? Now, we can either mount it on the rack like this, but the preference is usually to take this rack extension. This gives us several options for mounting the stabilizer. So one option is to mount it right here, like this. Okay. And then we can mount the stabilizer here and enter the incision. Or we can also mount it, depending on how the anastomose target's lining up, we can mount it over here, put the stabilizer on the rack extension, and come in this way, approach it from this direction. Okay? So you have this rack extension, which gives you multiple options for mounting your stabilizer.